I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Well, today starts the final week of Chef AJ Live as we know it, where I broadcast at least one live show every day, as I've been doing for over 4 years, because starting July 1st, I got to hit the road, promote my new book that's coming out, do a whole bunch of podcasts. If you have a podcast, let me know. I'd love to be on it. And my publisher can send you a book if you have me. If you buy the book, save your receipt. We have thousands of dollars worth of bonuses that we are going to send you virtually if you save the receipt. And you have 3 links below where you can buy it. And the first one is a signed copy. And I'll be doing a lot of book signings in the Sacramento area. Okay, but today's guest has a brand new book. It is called Baking Vegan Bread at Home. Now, of course, you can get it anywhere fine books are sold. However, it is on sale on Amazon today, so I'll be putting a link below. The author of the book is one of the most likable, fun people you could ever hope to meet and have on a show. His name is Shane Martin of Shane and Simple, and he is going to be demonstrating the best damn vegan banana bread. Please welcome back to the show, Shane Martin. Did I do a good Southern accent? I'm in.
Golly, I'm impressed. That was, most people, when they try to do Southern accents, they butcher it and it's just terrible. That was really good though.
So a lot of people don't know that I have another job, not a job or passion, is stand-up comedy and improv. And so to be PC, like there's a lot of accents that you're not allowed to do anymore, but you can be Southern. And so I think I've mastered it a little bit because it's
Yeah,
one of my
you
favorite.
did.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you.
I can. And there's what people don't realize is there's different types of Southern accents. So, like, I'm in the hill country of Mississippi, and everybody kind of talks like this, and I'm gonna run down the store a minute, and so that's that. But then you got more of the Savannah, which is kind of like this, and it kind of drips off, and then you got more of the Virginia, middle Mississippi. It's like, oh no, he shouldn't treat you like that, I mean, so it's really interesting. Like you go to different parts of the South, you'll hear different types of Southern
Do
accents.
you
So
ever wonder how I've always wondered, and maybe Dr. Doug Lyle knows how accents evolve just even in the United States, because when you think of like a New York accent, it's so different. I mean, like it's almost like one person kind of maybe created them back in the day, because they are so different. Boston,
yeah,
for example.
Boston, wicked smack. Yeah, you got that kind of thing. But there's an interesting video on YouTube that my wife and I saw that was talking about the development of the Southern accent. And it really is an offshoot of British and English, like how it got muddled. And so that's why a lot of people will say, oh, sometimes British people sound like they have a Southern accent or kind of vice versa. But it really was it just kind of developed out of the British dialect. It's really interesting though, but you can find it on YouTube. It's really interesting.
I would love
So,
to watch it because I've always been interested in that. It always seems the Southern drawl is kind of slow, it's like a
oh
slow.
yeah, it can be. But if like in the Mississippi Delta where my dad is from, like right there on the Mississippi River, there's almost more of a Cajun. So they'll kind of talk they'll talk real fast and kind of talk, there's this, it speeds up. That's why I say there's not just one Southern dialect. So it's really interesting. So
Yeah, yours isn't super duper strong, Shane.
yeah, so I left Mississippi when I was 20 and I moved to Nashville. Of course, it's kind of a melting pot because everybody from all over the country is there. But then we lived, of course, in Charlotte. So I kind of like to say that I feel like mine kind of developed a little bit where it kind of weeded out. But it's interesting when I get with my brother or a lot of family here, it kind of comes back pretty thick. My wife will say, "Oh my gosh," you know. But when I'm with my family, it kind of it comes in and out. But I always love it when I always say people from California are the only people I've ever met that don't have accents.
Yeah,
So
that's funny that you say that. I'm originally from Chicago, but lived most of my life in California. But every now and then, certain words like dog and coffee would come
yeah,
out.
coffee.
Now, when I used to do this conference every year in Texas that is not there anymore, one of the things I noticed they said in Texas a lot, if they had to do something, they go, "I'm fixing to go to the store."
Yes,
Do you
yeah.
how did that start? Because I'm thinking,
I,
why don't you just go instead of be fixing to go, you know?
I don't know. That's interesting because it was really interesting. Like we grew up saying that, hey, are you going with us to the game? Yeah, we're fixing to leave. I don't know where that came from. It's still part of. I think I say I'm about to more now than I do fixing, but occasionally, like if I call family or call somebody, or they're like, "Yeah, we're fixing to head your way." I mean, but I don't even know how to spell it. I think it's Fixin apostrophe maybe. But so anyway.
Well, let's talk about the book. So tell us a little bit about it. It's called Baking Vegan Bread at Home, Beautiful Every Day and Our Artisan Plant-Based Breads. It's got beautiful pictures. For example, these very fluffy oil-free pancakes. These, I actually tried this recipe. Excellent. The apple oat muffin. Um,
Yeah.
so how did this come to be? When did the book come out? And what was it like writing it?
Um, so I think it was last year during February. I think it was February, and I got an email. And you know that, being doing what you do and being online and being a content creator, I get emails all the time from people going, "Oh, hey, we would love to give you sponsored content," or "Hey, have you thought about writing a book, or have you thought about doing this?" And a lot of times it's these people that go in for the great fee of $5,000, we'll do your book. Like you pay us 5,000. You get all these things. But I got an email um, from a gentleman at Harvard Press. And he said, "Hey, Shane, I'm with Harvard Press. We'd like to talk to you about doing a cookbook." And I've always wanted to do a cookbook, but they said, we're wanting to do a vegan bread book. And they specifically specialize in like how-to books, culinary books. So it's not like going to Penguin, but they're kind of doing these utilitarian books almost, and but he said, "I'd love to talk to you about it." He said, "We're actually a real publisher. This is not some fake email." But he said, "If you give me your number, I can call you." And of course, I look at it and I go, "Uh huh, sure, heard that before." And the next day, I got another email. "Would you be remotely interested? I'd really like to talk to you." And so, sure enough, I gave my number and we did a office, whatever the thing is on Microsoft. We did an office or a meeting, a meetup or whatever, and did a video chat. And he told me the story. He's actually out. He's in Chicago, is where his home office is, and so we just Dan and I just talked, and he was like the main editor and or publisher, and it was with this group called Quarto, and they just have their offices all over the world. And I went and looked. And I was like, "Oh yeah, they're actually Harvard Press," and so. um, and so they gave me the idea of the book, and this was really unusual because as a cookbook author yourself, you have the idea of the book that you want to write, and your literary agent floats that, and your publisher says, "Okay, let's do it." Well, this was different. They already had the budget, the book that they wanted. They knew what it was going to be about. They just didn't have the author, and so they were looking for an author. And I asked them, I said, "How did you find me?" And they said, "Well, we went into Pinterest, typing in some keywords of what we want the book to be about, and you came up." And they go, "So you're a bread guy, right?" I am totally not a baker. I can bake. And so I just learned when I used to do sales, if anybody asks you a question, the answer is always yes. And so they said, "So you're a bread guy, right?" And I went, "I like bread. I like it a lot." And um, they just told me about these ideas for the books and that they were already approved. And so I said, "Well, let me have a night to think about it." And I'd never written a book, didn't know the first place to start, was kind of scared crapless, and talked to my wife. And the next day, I just reached out and said, "We'll do it." And I reached out to a buddy who had been following me for a while, who was a New York Times best author, and he said, "Man, you need to do this." He said, "They're giving you free college tuition in the book writing world, and is how you need to look at it." So that was last February. March, I started, and it was an experience because I am not an organized person, and just started going through and researching recipes and what breads are not vegan, because a lot of bread is naturally vegan anyway. It's just flour, salt, yeast, and water for the most part. But there's a lot of the artisan breads that use, a lot of dairy and stuff like that. And so I just started digging in and did not realize how much bread is in the world and the different types of bread. So it was a challenge as a recipe developer to go through and figure out how to do these breads and buns and stuff like that. But um, so I think it was due. I think the book was due in May or June, and I finished it in September or something like that. And then minute that it was done, they came back and said, "We want to do a bread machine cookbook, and we want you to do it." I thought for sure I'd push them away because I missed every deadline and had them. But I'm sure they work with creative, so they know how we work. But anyway, that's kind of how it came about. And when I started the book, they weren't looking for a healthy bread cookbook. They wanted a vegan book. So one of the things I wrestled with is, do I do this book? Because my thing is healthy, whole food, plant-based recipes, the no oils and things like that. And so that's not what they like. If you can do the whole book, that's fine like that, but that's not what we're looking for. And so I talked to a lot of people in our arena that you and I both know, and they were all very supportive. And they said, look, man, they said, you know, this is a great opportunity. You're representing the brand, you're helping the veganism cause, but just because of who you are, there are going to be a lot of people that come to your site because of this book. And so um, I tried to be as transparent as possible up front to let people know this is not a whole food plant-based cookbook. There are some oil-free recipes, and I tried to do some where I could do healthy recipes, but it's just a vegan book. And so, but that's kind of how it started. And once I got over that hump, just kind of got into it and then, like I said, pushed through, got it done, and then started on the next one for the bread machine, and literally just sent the final. I think this is great. So it's actually on pre-order. If you go to the Amazon link that you post, they'll see a pre-order for the next book as
Yeah, I,
well.
I
So
just looked for that and I can put it in the show notes as well. It says it comes out November 19th. And do not
okay,
apologize for writing a vegan book. I'm so tired of people that criticize people that are promoting veganism just because we eat one way and prefer to teach and eat one way. People say, oh,
right,
you had them on the show, they use oil. Like, who cares if they use oil or faux meat? If because I was in it for the animals first and foremost. So
yeah,
I had people were so mean on Instagram and Facebook when I went to this amazing factory. I had him on the show, Paul Shapiro. It's called the Better Meat Company, and he is making
mm-hmm,
animal products out of mycelium. It's not a processed food. It's like literally a blank slate. What
mm-hmm.
restaurants or Hormel does with it, it's up to them. So I tasted a half a piece of vegan bacon that was made with that, and it's like people like flipped out, like I can't believe,
Yeah,
so I mean, I guess people just don't really know who I am or who you are, because the thing is if we just keep being this way, we're just preaching to the choir. This book,
yeah,
other people. Now, here, this is a really interesting story in many ways, because most people have to struggle to first get a book agent and then get, a publisher and then get
yeah,
a deal. It was kind of like this whole thing came backwards to you. It was like, okay,
yes.
now you write the book. And I didn't even realize that, except for challah, Jewish bread, which has, eggs in it, I didn't realize that in general bread wasn't vegan.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was the thing. There's a lot of bread recipes in there that are just naturally accidentally vegan, but there were other breads that, use dairy and especially the dessert breads and things like that and the eggs to get them fluffy. And so that was kind of the challenge of because as well as I do, I completely promote a whole food, plant-based, oil-free diet. But at the same time, there are just some recipes you're never going to be able to duplicate from the animal product world unless you use the vegan butters and the vegan cheeses and things like that. And while they're not part of my diet, I'm kind of like you. It's like I like to tell people it's a less unhealthy alternative than the meat the animal product versions. And so but there just are people that are vegans that want to have good artisan bread, and they don't know where to go to get it, and most bakeries are not going to make a vegan challah bread. And so I learned how to braid bread. I learned how to things like that. So, but I was surprised at how many bread recipes are actually vegan. But when you get into the specialty things like the sour cream and cheddar breads and things like that, that's where you really have to get creative and try to figure out how to make vegan versions of them and make them taste good. So
But what, were you already somebody that made bread? Because to me, like if somebody offered me a book like this, I'd be like, I made challah when I was younger, but I was like, how could you do this? Like, did you have to do a lot of research, or were you somebody that was always bread?
yeah. No, no, no. I love bread. That's like I was saying at the beginning when I asked them how they found me, they said they went to Pinterest and typed in what they were looking for, and one of my pins came up, and they go, "So you're a bread guy?" And my response was literally, "Yeah, I love bread." I didn't say because I'm not a baker. I
Right.
don't. I've done bread before, but like very sparingly. So I would never. So when I sat down to do the book, the challenge for me was to fight off my ADD, and I had to really research. Like sometimes I just type in non-vegan breads and just kind of see what was out there, and but the research part was the hardest part for me because I love the creativity. I love the cooking. I love the photographing or the photography aspect of it and creating those kinds of things. And so the research was like death to me. I didn't, it was like, I got to sit and I've got to focus for long periods of time. Um, but no, I had to do a lot of research, reached out to people that I knew could bake. And so it was yeah, that was the hard part for me because like I said, I'm not a baker. And you're right. Normally you get an agent, you shop a book, you shop an idea. And in literally since last February, I've written 2 books back to back. And I'm just kind of like, okay, I don't know where to go from here now. So, because everybody I've talked to said, yeah, that's not how this system works. So, I mean, so it's been crazy the last year. So,
Wow, that is it's so cool. Now, the next book is on bread machines. So, did you already have a bread machine, or is this something you're going to have to learn as well?
I had to go buy a bread machine.
Yeah,
So,
this is such a funny story. It's sort of like they said to somebody, listen, we have a TV show and it's a sitcom and we want you to be the lead actor, but it's okay that you haven't taken any acting lessons. Just would you sign? That's kind of what it reminds me of. It's
yeah,
hilarious.
that's what it felt like. And I feel like my whole life, Andrea and I have always talked, we feel like things just hit us upside the head like this. Like nothing has ever been normal in our relationship or our family, we feel like. And so when they said, okay, so the idea is a bread machine book, we've gone on the New York Times, there's not really a vegan bread machine cookbook that we can find. And they said there needs to be one out there. And they said, we want you to do it if you want to do it. We really love how the last book turned out. So basically, I had like a week or two off, and then started writing another book and researching. It was a little. I learned a lot from the first one. I learned how not to operate because I would because they came back and originally they had hired a photographer. They were going to go get a photographer. I think from Southern Living magazine that did their food photography over in Birmingham, I think. And then the creative director had gone on my blog and said, well, wait a minute, did you do the photography? I said, yeah. And they said, well, why don't we just hire you to do your own photography? And I'm thinking, oh, this is great. I'm going to get to shoot a cookbook too. Well, I didn't plan that very well. And so I ended up developing all the recipes and cooking them, and then had to go back and redo them and decide which ones I was going to shoot. And so I was coming in on the deadline. My wife took a break from her work as a graphic designer, and she spent like 12 hours in the kitchen one day just baking all the loaves. And I think for 3 days, I honestly got about 4.5 hours of sleep. Ended up getting sick when I shot the last photo because I had not slept. And that was terrible. So I did not make that mistake with this book. So I kind of shot as I went along. I still was late on the deadlines, but I finished a lot quicker than I did. But yeah, so it was one right after the other. So yeah, it's been crazy. So in like, I guess, yeah, a year and a half, like 2 books. So
That's amazing. And now let's say this hadn't happened. Did you want to write a book? Did you have an idea from a book? Maybe it would be based on your blog recipes, which by the way, I know you can't see the chat, but people are saying how much they love a certain one of your recipes, the soy curl bulgogi. Susanna says her
oh yeah.
7-year-old son loves that. and I'm not even sure he eats plant-based. And there was something else. I'll find it because I'm actually looking at
Okay.
instead of the blog, but people they're mentioning these recipes that they love of Shane and Simple. So I was curious.
Wow.
What I see a lot of people do, like Kathy Fisher, who had a wonderful blog and still does, called Straight Up Food. She made a book of all the
Yes.
recipes and the blogs and photographed it. So I was wondering if that was ever an idea you had for yourself, or the publisher would like you to do at some point.
I would love, I think every blogger's dream is to eventually write a book. And I would love to hope that having 2 books under my belt in a year, would give me a pretty decent resume. But I've always wanted to do a Shane and Simple cookbook. And that's what I tell people. This was not a Shane and Simple cookbook. This was a book that the guy who owned Shane and Simple got to do. And I would love to do, I've had a lot of ideas. I've always wanted to do, like, I wanted to do like a Southern food cookbook, vegan Southern food cookbook, like we grew up, because that's really what made me want to start a blog, and trying to take my favorite recipes from growing up, like meatloaf and mashed potatoes, and going, oh, you can totally make healthy versions of this. So to answer your question, yes, I would love to do something like that eventually. Um, and hopefully that maybe that's the next thing that kind of comes out of this, maybe. So
That sounds great. It'll happen, Shane.
I think so. I think so. It was definitely an experience, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I mean, it just, because a lot of people get in this area, and their hope is to write a book one day or something. And so I'm trying not to take it for granted at all, and going, I'm not saying, oh, it's not the Shane and Simple book. It's not what I want to do. And I'm kind of going, hey, you really need to, like, telling myself, you need to shut up and be very grateful, because this is not something everybody gets to do.
But
And
it's a vegan
not
book.
a,
So it's a vegan
oh,
book.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And I'm like, if you had told me when I started this little blog, and I'll get emotional talking about it, my goal was just to maybe make enough to have as a supplementary income to my full-time job. And the fact that I get to do this for a living, and then if you had told me when I started my little blog back in 2018, and then I went full-time with it in 2020 when it was still a part-time income, but if you told me in 4 years, within 4 years of going full-time with this, that I would have written 2 books already, I would have laughed at. I mean, it's just amazing to see what the journey has been like. And I mean, I would not trade it for the world. I mean, it has, you know, it's like they say, if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And there's definitely cons, as with anything, and things you have to keep up. And we're not making a ton of money, but it's like we make enough. And every month, my wife and I are like, because she works for herself as well. She's a freelance graphic designer. But I went up to her the other day, and I just sat down, and I'm kind of nostalgic, and I like to romanticize things. And I just told her, I said, do you realize in 4 years we've not had a boss? And it's like, I mean, it's the greatest thing in the world. And I was like, thank you, Lord. We get to do it one more month. It's kind of, I try to live in the moment and not go, well, this hasn't happened and this is not, it's like just trying to do the next thing and just enjoy it.
Your friend Esther Loveridge, who's watching on Facebook, says you have such an engaging personality. And by the way, guys, if you're watching on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, starting July 1st, it's Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, it's only going to be YouTube. So hopefully you'll go to chefaj.com, because we're still going to be doing some live shows and pre-records, but it's not going to be multi-stream. So I hate to lose you, but it's changing, is happening.
Yeah.
So Shane, the cauliflower chickpea casserole seems to be a favorite, what I'm reading on the chat.
Yeah. Golly, that's one of my wife's favorites too. The we we don't make it in the summer a lot because it's hot as blazes down here. So it's like a buffalo chickpea cauliflower casserole. But yeah, that's one of our favorites. We eat that a lot. I mean, I think cauliflower is the new chicken. I tell people that. So
That is funny. The wonderful doctor you introduced me to, you guys hang out, you have him over
oh,
there.
Rich. Yeah, it's funny. I got to get a jab in, because when he told me he was doing your show, I love Rich, and I actually just saw him Sunday because my wife and I were in Tupelo shopping, and so we ran by his house, and I had to pick up some stuff. And after he did your show, this is a new area for him, like being on video, and so he's trying to But we always joke about my banana bread because one time we were hanging out and he goes, I made your banana bread last night. I said, what do you think? And Rich is just very, yeah, it was good. And I was like, what? Yeah, but what? He goes, well, I added a little more cinnamon and I added some chocolate chip. And I was like, well, that's what it's meant. I was like, but was it good? He goes, oh yeah, it was good. And so now every time we see each other or we've done podcasts together, um, he'll go, well, like one of my favorites is Shane's banana bread. Yeah. And I'll always jab him like, yeah, with your tweaks because it didn't have enough cinnamon or something like that. But yeah, I love Rich.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
If people are unfamiliar with what we're talking about, we did an episode called Healing in the Deep South with Dr. Rich McCarthy, and he was a fabulous guest. And any first time guest gets 2 free bottles of vinegar the first time. He sent me a present.
Yeah, he told me he did. He's like, that's Rich.
Yeah, he
That's
was
Rich. And
great. Oh, you're so lucky to have a plant-based doctor where you are.
yeah, he's awesome. He is awesome.
Yeah. Well, you're gonna. Oh, okay. Here's a question. Then we got to do some
Sure.
bacon.
Sure.
What are a few more of your kids' favorite recipes? Susanna said the beef bulgogi. I hope I'm saying that right. Or bulgogi was a huge hit with,
Bulgogi.
yeah, with her non-vegan teens. She needs more suggestions of which ones are the real winners with your kids.
Okay. For desserts, it would definitely be the no bake chocolate peanut butter pie. They love that. The blueberry crisp. They love the lentil, the chickpea meatloaf, the lentil oat meatloaf. Um, my daughter, a lot of their favorite is one of the simplest recipes on there. It's the chipotle chickpea tacos. And what my wife will do is she will make just the chipotle chickpeas. It takes like 5 minutes. Then she'll make a batch of my macaroni and cheese and eat that together with some of the sauteed kale. And she said it's one of the best combinations. So those were kind of our go-tos, I would say. And then my kids, oddly enough, they love tofu. So like the buffalo crunchy buffalo tofu wings, they love as an appetizer, and then the buffalo cauliflower, and then the cheese dip, the cashew queso. That's kind of like their go-to for snacks or even making rice bowls or something. So
Are
that's a
we allowed?
lot, but I
Are,
didn't.
are we allowed to talk about your oldest kid and the present she's going to give you?
We absolutely are. We absolutely are. Yes.
So
So do you want to say it or should I?
the same week that Shane's giving birth to a second book in November, he's going to be getting something that he's never had before.
I am going to be in November. I'm getting emotional talking about. I'm going to be a grandfather. So
You don't look old enough to be a grandpa. You just don't.
well, apparently I am. It has been a whirlwind this past year with the book. My oldest daughter graduated from Mississippi State but last summer, and her boyfriend at the time, who graduated year before her, is electrical engineer. Justin, we absolutely love him. Went into air. He was in part of the Air Force ROTC. Brilliant guy. Got accepted into the pilot program. And after his first year of pilot training, found out he was going to be transferred to San Antonio. My daughter had graduated last year and was working for the Parks and Recs Commission in Starkville, Mississippi. He found out he was going to San Antonio, and she calls us, and she just said, "Hey, Justin found out where he's going, San Antonio, and we've decided we're not going to be apart long distance." So we said, "Does that mean you're getting married?" She goes, "Yes, exactly what it means," which we knew that was coming. So that was like October. He drove over one day, very sweet, asked our blessing, which he already had it. He graduated flight school like I think November 11th or something. He proposed to her that day. They got married the Sunday after Thanksgiving a few weeks later. And then 1 week later, loaded up and moved to San Antonio in December. And then we drove out to see her in March during spring break with our other kids. And it was the sweetest way. She told us, she was showing us their little house and showing us around. And she said, "Daddy, this is where you and Mom will stay tonight." And I walked in and there were a couple things folded up on the end of the bed. And I walked back out. She goes, "Did you not see on the end of your bed?" I said, "Oh, the bath towels." And she said, "Yeah." She said, "No." I said, "I saw those." She goes, "Well, there's something else." And I walked in, and there was a little pilot onesie that she had laid on the bed. And I just came out, and I'm a crier in our family, and I just started bawling. So that's a long way to tell you that we are going to be grandparents. So, and I loved hearing that we don't look old enough to be grandparents.
No, you
So,
just look, I don't know, you look maybe 40 or something. I don't know, maybe at the most.
mhm,
You
yeah.
have 5 kids, so I figure you got to be, I would imagine,
Yeah, yeah. I turned 51 in February.
well, you
So,
you are looking good. Well, this is great.
well, thank you.
Yeah. So banana
Well, I'm excited.
is one of the
Yes.
questions I have is so in this is not a gluten-free book. So one of the questions
Right.
I get a lot in general is, do you have any suggestions for when you're calling for whole wheat flour, like what a person that is gluten-free, would you recommend like a Bob's Red Mill, blend,
Yeah.
and then oat flour? Like, do you know any of the subs for people that have to be gluten-free by necessity?
Yeah. So what I usually do, and I tell people, because I'm not, thankfully, I don't have to be gluten free, and there are a few recipes in there that are. Typically, the best place to start is you have to remember that a lot of the gluten-free flours are not going to give you the rise and they can't be used one to one. But I always send people to Bob's Red Mill because they have a baking flour, a one to one baking flour, and then an all purpose gluten-free flour. And so if you go online, but one of those two recipes or those flours will always be a good sub. Oat flour can work sometimes, but typically with Bob's Red Mill, with his gluten free one to one and his all purpose gluten free flour, those will usually sub really well for recipes like this. But you typically, with just a little bit of search, you can go what kind of gluten-free flour should I use for banana bread or whatever. And the Bob's Red Mill site is great at really helping with that too. But usually with those two flours is where I recommend people start. And they're usually very interchangeable for the most part. I do tell people never use almond flour just like you try to replace regular flour with almond flour because it's not really that type of flour. Um, so there are things that it's good for, but even with almond flour pancakes, you have to have, another type of flour to go with it. But yeah, usually I start at Bob's one to one baking flour, gluten free one to one baking flour, or Bob's gluten free all purpose flour.
Yep, that's exactly what I would say too. So great. Well, let's get started with the recipe so you can bake the world a better place.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. That's good. I like that.
Thank you.
So this recipe,
Well,
that was great. Bake
well,
the
you know what it was?
well.
Okay, okay. Can I just say I'm sorry because you're very
Yes. No.
maybe,
No.
maybe you can help me out with this. So I'm doing a book signing at this place locally. It's like a small independent bookstore. Thank you so much, A Seat at the Table, for having me. And they're able to get my book 2 days before Amazon or anyone, and I'm able to sign them for people. And it's pretty much close to the same price. So I'm going to have to go in because they have 150 orders and I have to sign them. And I'm trying to think, what do I sign? A dessert book, because my savory book, I would just sign, eat your greens in good health, love and kale, Chef AJ. And it doesn't work for this. And
Uh-huh.
so I was running ideas, and one of them was bake the world a better place. But then I realized there's not a lot of bake recipes. So if you have any like catchy phrases that I could, just because I'm gonna have to sign 150, I was thinking something like, my sister said sweets to the sweet, or I was thinking just here's to the sweet life, maybe. I don't.
Yeah, or here, I think that is good. Or you could just sign it, enjoy and eat them, sweet them.
Oh, it's cute. That's cute. Because when I do 150, I'm good. When I do the in-person signing, then I can customize it if I know the person. But when I got to do 150,
Hmm.
I kind of have to have like a little phrase that I'll remember. So,
Yeah. Well, I can't remember if I put it in your book, but kind of the way I've been signing the book
oh
is
my
get
God,
baked.
let me just show you. He didn't just sign it. This is the most beautiful. Guys, get the book, please. Look at this beautiful inscription. I am so honored. Just thank you so much. This is more than just bake 'em, sweetie, or whatever you just said.
So, but Well, so what I thought I would do, there is a banana bread in there, and I'm going to show everybody how to make this completely oil-free, completely healthy. It uses whole wheat flour. And my wife, after the book came out, actually went back and tested some of the sweet breads, doing them a whole food plant-based way, and they worked great. They worked completely great. And I will say, before I forget, my favorite recipe in that book is the island pineapple coconut bread. That is just like a pina colada in a loaf. It is just so stinking good. So, um, but anyway, so let's get started on the banana bread, shall we?
Absolutely. I'm going to look up that recipe right now.
Okay. So, what we're going to do is start off with three very ripe bananas. And I've already pre-mashed these. And you want to use ripe bananas. I say the browner the better. If you don't have ripe bananas, one of the things you can do is go ahead and mash them and let them sit out for a few minutes and they'll turn brown. So we're going to do three mashed bananas, half a cup of maple syrup, and you can adjust that to your taste if you don't like it. I mean, it gets fairly sweet with the bananas. Now, instead of oil, we're using half a cup of applesauce. And this is all of the wet ingredients. And let's see, and then about a teaspoon of vanilla. I love vanilla and I don't ever measure it. So vanilla is all about having a good time. So there's your wet ingredients, just four ingredients: bananas, maple syrup, applesauce, and a little vanilla. One of the things I will say to people, if you like amaretto or something like that, like almond extract in place of the banana is really good. It adds a unique flavor to it. Okay, so now the dry ingredients, we're going to use 1.5 cups of whole wheat pastry flour. And to replace the eggs, I'm going to do 1/4 cup of flaxseed. So great for protein, fiber, omega-3s. And then we've got let's see, what have I got? I got 1 teaspoon of baking soda and a half teaspoon of baking powder. And then if you're watching, Rich, I'm putting the cinnamon in it, about a half teaspoon of cinnamon. I think he likes more, but so there, let me get my whisk. All right. So there's the dry ingredients. And you just want to whisk that. And now all we're going to do is add the wet and the dry. And people always ask me, how smooth do my bananas need to be? Do they need to? I like leaving some chunks in the banana. You can actually puree the wet mixture if you want, but I like chunks in the banana. And so, all right, so we're just going to mix it and mix and mix and mix until everything's incorporated and there's no dry spots. No dry spots. All right. And just so we don't have to wait, I made one right before we came on so we can see how it turns out too. Because I plan on eating this. The kitchen.
I'm going to show what it looks like in the book. And you take these pictures. They're beautiful. This was like an overhead shot. This looks really good. The sunny day lemon loaf.
Oh, okay. Let me tell you about that. I take that back. My two favorite recipes are tied: island pineapple coconut bread and that lemon loaf. I used to love Starbucks lemon loaf before I was vegan. That was I used to go get a cup of coffee and lemon loaf. So that recipe is kind of my take on that. So, all right. All right. So the batter is done. I'm going to hold this up so people can see it. There you go. All done. And then I've got a prepared baking pan right here. And we're just going to put it in there. And I've lined my loaf pan with parchment paper. So again, no spray, no oil. I am not a militant person when it comes to baking sprays, as long as you don't coat the pan in them. Like, I think they serve a purpose. And so I don't go. Now, I'm going to show you what I like to do with this. This is if you're making this for people and you want to kind of get kind of fancy and bougie with it, you can put in add-ins. You can put walnuts in this. It's a great breakfast bread, walnuts, chocolate chips, vegan chocolate chips, pecans. I mean, it really is up to you. But what I like to do is once I get it in there, I like to take a smaller banana. And this is like really cool. I do this when we heading over. I gotta get the right knife. I take a knife and then I slice a banana down the center long ways and just slice it in half. And then what I like to do is take the banana and lay it on top of the batter and just kind of stagger it. And I'll show this. Just kind of press it down there so it sits flush. But then if you put the banana on top of the loaf like that, and it's in the picture like that in the cookbook, it creates a really nice design. So it's 350, and I'm gonna put that in the oven for about 45 to 50 minutes, and then it's kind of that thing when you take it out and poke it with a skewer or something, and there's nothing, it's fine. But I made this one earlier, right here. And I forgot to.
That looks so rustic,
Yeah. Well, I forgot to turn my bananas upside down. You want the flat side up because they glisten, but you still get the idea, but it doesn't change the taste. And it's just, yes, it is. And I think that you definitely need an inside shot because this bread is not just delicious. It's beautiful on the inside. And I know, man, look at this. You even get the little, look at that.
You could sell it.
Right here.
Yeah.
Man, I think that this is one of our favorite recipes too. I love banana bread. Love banana bread.
And I agree with you. The secret is getting those spotty ripe bananas. If they are not ripe, it's not going to be sweet enough.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
You want to give this recipe to the viewers or not? It's totally up to you.
Yeah.
I'll put it in the show notes. Show notes, guys, are only available on YouTube. So I'm going to add that right now. I love how you say, I don't make vegan food. I make food vegan.
Yeah. That's kind of been my whole, I think since I started, I never wanted to make things that were just explicitly vegan in the sense that this would only be a vegan recipe. My goal was always to take what I love and how do I make it healthy and make it vegan and make it plant-based. And that's always been my mission. And so, yeah, I live and die by, well, I shouldn't say I live and die by that. I live by that.
Cool.
But as you just saw, it was super quick. I did this in real time, putting it together and putting it in the oven. And we're talking, what, 5 minutes maybe to do it all?
Yeah, really easy. Some stores you can buy like older bananas at a really low price. It's fantastic,
If you're near like a Kroger or a Harris Teeter, they have a section of like fruit and produce where you can go and check. And we used to buy bananas in big old bags for like 58 cents, 60 cents. And we like our bananas that already have spots on them because I just think they taste better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for eating though, I like them a little bit less ripe. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to eat them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. How many hours a day did you spend, where we were talking yesterday, me and Glenn Merzer, Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss. I literally spent 5 years writing and rewriting before I even gave it to Glenn to help me finish it. So what is the hard part not the hard part, but what do you find challenging with the writing? Is it the writing? Is it the creating the recipes? Is it taking the photos of the recipes?
Yeah, I think for me, it's coming up with like the writing from the standpoint of the descriptions because you're trying to it's like writing that intro 2 or 3 statement on your blog. Like you're trying to get all the key points in a very limited amount of time. So trying to figure out how to write and come up with that was actually one of the most challenging. But it was challenging to come up with the recipes But, again, that's the creative process, and that's what you kind of get lost in and enjoy. Um, and so, but there were those days where everything you're trying is just not working. And so it's like it's back to the drawing board, back to the drawing board. The photography took a long time. But again, I think that's because, a lot of bloggers, when they take pictures, it's great. I'm not demeaning it, but it's very utilitarian, get the point across. And I guess for me, again, being a musician and an artist, when I got into photography, I was always trying to create moments, like trying to create places that I would want to be or make people feel like, it's trying to create perception. And so I spend more time than I should on things like that. But like the book, when they originally talked to me about shooting, that's what took the most time was the shooting. Um, but they told me, they said, yeah, we're thinking bright and airy and things like that. But if you look at that book, it's very rustic, very moody, very dark in a lot of ways. And when I started, it just felt like that's where the book was going. And so I'm kind of like, lead me, I will follow kind of thing. Now, with the second book, when it's like night and day when you see the photographs on the new book, because it is very bright and white and airy and light and looks like you're in your standard white tile kitchen kind of thing. So we definitely went a different direction, but that's what it felt like. It felt like bread machine's not going to be in a rustic farmhouse somewhere, And so, but I think the pictures took the longest, but again, I love the creativity aspect. So it's fun moving things and creating and angles and things like that.
So how did you know which bread machine to buy for the next book? Because there's many different ones. And do you recommend certain ones?
Oh, I didn't. I just went on, read the reviews on Amazon, go, that looks good. So, um, I will say, I ended up getting the Cuisinart 2 pound to make 2 pound loaves. And I love it. And I don't really have anything to compare it to, but it's the one I've been recommending to people. It's super easy, and that was the purpose of the book. This needs to be a book for people that don't make bread. And that's the best part about the bread machine is you just put everything in there in the way that it tells you and you hit start. And so, but when I first started looking, um, it was just kind of reading the reviews and seeing, and I wanted to do something, because for me, it's a tax write-off and you get a little bit of an advance. And so you're using some of that advance to buy, ingredients and equipment. But I didn't want to go super expensive because I wanted this to be accessible for people. Um, and I will say this up front, it's very accessible. And anybody that's not a part of the Shane and Simple mailing list needs to do that because I'm going to be giving away a bread machine here. You're the first, this is the first place I've announced this. I haven't even
Nice.
put it out. So in a few weeks, we're going to be giving a bread machine away. And so
Where are you giving it away? Where can people find that? On your blog?
they just need to, it's completely free. Subscribe to the mailing list, Shane and Simple. They'll get all the info. Follow me at Facebook or Instagram. It's going to be put out. It's going to be put out on all those platforms. But the best place to be sure you kept up to date with those is just getting on the mailing list at the blog. And you just go to shaneandsimple.com and subscribe. And like I said, it's completely free.
That's amazing. Thank you. Hey, so Anna might not have seen our previous episode and she'd like to know, do you normally eat whole food plant-based and how did you get your start in this?
Yes, that is kind of how we eat at home. Well, that's not kind of, that's the only way I eat at home. Um, my start was, Anna, about 11 years ago, I got up to my heaviest at about 300 pounds, had heart disease, diabetes, fatty liver, super high cholesterol, and was just wanting to lose weight because I needed to do something. And I just had getting ready to have my fifth kid. And I reached out to a friend that I saw had lost a lot of weight, and he told me about forks over knives and going vegan. And of course, my first instinct was, yeah, I'm not doing that. Vegans don't bathe, they hug trees and eat bark, And but he said, no, just go watch Forks Over Knives. And I did, started doing some research, fell in love, became a huge fan of the Esselstyns and Dr. Campbell, and Rip Esselstyn was like my hero then. And loved Dr. McDougall, loved his attitude. And so I just started kind of researching everything I could. And really everything that I had thought about health, what you could eat, what it meant to eat plant-based was completely blown away and completely turned around. And basically started 2 weeks before my 40th birthday. And just been doing it ever since. And I've always cooked. I love to cook, and just kind of started figuring out I love these things. How do I make them healthy? And then when I would look for desserts, I found out about you. Actually, the first place I saw you was on Cupcake Wars.
I know, and that's a perfect example. I had to use oil in order to compete, and I had an ethical dilemma because I don't promote oil. And Dr. Barnard said you do more good than harm by doing stuff. And he said, hit him over.
Mm-hmm.
What he said to me, I remember, and he actually endorsed this next book, the dessert book. He said, draw him in with desserts and then hit him over the head with kale.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly
There
what.
you go.
Yeah.
So my start was just following what y'all did and then going, well, who am I? Well, I'm a simpleton. I don't like complicated things and I like Southern food. So how am I going to combine the two? And then probably 6 years or about 4 years later is when I put my first post out for a recipe. And then that's kind of how it took off.
That's fantastic. I love it. I love it. Let me see if there's any more questions. And please put 4 questions. But yes, this recipe I think is on your blog. But we're giving you a link in the show notes with the recipe and a clickable link so you can even print it out. However, we still want you to buy the book if you love Shane.
Please do. Please
Yep,
do.
yep, it really helps out, and also it helps. I see, this is the other thing. I just think it helps veganism when people buy vegan books and they do great. Like just this week, I mean, like tomorrow, if you don't mind me plugging some of our other friends, there's 2 vegan books coming out tomorrow, and I hope you'll buy both of them because people, it just really helps. And then there'll be even more vegan books when
What
people.
are the, what are the books?
Oh, so the ones that are coming out, I'm sorry, I didn't realize maybe you can't see me. Duh. So
I can
Can
see.
Recipe Save Your Life by Dr. Alan Goldhammer and The Impactful Vegan by Robert Sheik. Dr.
Oh,
Goldhammer was on the show yesterday and Robert will be on Thursday. So this is a big week for vegan books. Oh, I just saw your question, Lily. What size loaf pan did you use, Shane?
yeah, that's a good question. I think it's these USA pans. So I think they're a little smaller, but let me see. They're about 1, 3, 4, 5. It looks like about a 5 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like a 5 by 8, 5 by 7, something like that. I typically like the smaller loaf pans just because I think it looks better, but the 9 by 13, not 9 by 13, but I think the 6 by 9s or whatever, but any loaf pan will work.
You know what? Oh, and Lily, you can't see, guys, when you watch on Facebook, as I said, starting July 1st, it's only going to be YouTube. You can only see show notes on YouTube, which are there. Shane, I like to use the silicone pans. I have a silicone loaf pan
Yes.
I love so much.
Yeah, I've got silicone muffin pans, silicone loaf pans, silicone um baking pans, and I will definitely use those a lot. Um, that usually the only time I'll use more of the harder loaf pans is if I'm doing things like this, or I'm doing things when people are coming over, or um, I want a certain shape and I want it to be like narrow if I'm taking pictures, just because smaller things photograph well and appear bigger. But I learned actually before I got online with you today, I actually learned how to cut parchment paper to make it mold into the loaf pan, so it doesn't even touch the loaf pan at all. So it's just basically you take the paper out and it's spotless. So I was pretty proud of myself on that one.
Nice. Well, Janice says she's made the recipe, loved it, and she's even doubled it and baked it in a 9 by 13 inch pan.
Oh, nice. Almost like a banana cake.
Yeah. And you know what's great about banana bread is of a lot of things, it freezes really well.
It does. Oh, yes. Banana bread freezes really well. And like I said, and it's like a canvas. Like sometimes we will add cocoa powder to it just to get a like a chocolate banana bread or I've even added shredded carrots to it before, and it's almost like a banana carrot cake bread. I mean, you can put
Did,
raisins in it.
have you ever done like zucchini bread or date nut bread?
There is a zucchini bread recipe on the website, and there's one in the book as well. So, yes, we love zucchini bread. I love zucchini bread. And I tell people, even if you don't like zucchini, you will love zucchini bread because it doesn't taste like zucchinis. I mean, I love zucchini bread,
Yeah.
especially in the fall when Thanksgiving rolls around. So,
It's funny, whenever people grow their own produce, it seems like that's what they have an abundance of. Like, so when you have these neighbors, you know, that you just get like pounds and pounds and pounds of zucchini.
hmm yeah, and we love doing like zoodles, like spiralizing them in the summer and making noodles out of them. Just when you don't want to eat something heavy.
I just got an electric spiralizer. It's so easy. You just go, and you know, it wasn't that
I've still
expensive.
got the one yet.
Yeah. You got the old fashioned kind of cranky
I
one.
got
Yeah. That's,
the old plastic one you got to sit here and do this with. So,
I love it. You know, I'm so glad that I mentioned how I was having trouble deciding how to endorse my books or not. It's not called endorse when you, yeah, you know, write it when,
promote,
you know, when somebody buys it and you sign it, it's not, I don't even know what.
endorse it, autograph it.
Yeah, autograph it, right. So Health Fest says gave me a bunch, and I think I'm going to use the last one. Turning plant-based dreams into dessert realities, sweetening life one cruelty-free dessert at a time, delight in guilt-free sweetness. But I think I'm going to go with the fourth one because it's shorter. I suggested here's to the sweet life. They're saying live the sweet life. I like that better.
There you go.
Sweet life.
Yeah.
So thank you, Health First. That is
Yes.
that is see, that's good when we bring out our problems onto the show and then we have the audience solve them for us.
Well,
Uh,
it kind of has a double meaning too, because if you got the sweet with the desserts, and when you live a healthy, whole food, plant-based life, you're still living the sweet life. So,
yep. So
for the
Lily's
most part.
saying, what about a glass pan? And Sharon's saying, I think the crumb is better in glass or metal rather than silicone. I don't know if that's, I mean, maybe, but we'd have to do a side by side to check.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've made like blueberry crumbles and crisp in glass pans. I've made the loaf in glass pans. It works. I've made the loaf in like a stoneware loaf pan. It works. Um, it's interesting. I don't think apart from the size and the shape, haven't noticed um I haven't noticed as much of a difference in the texture or anything. But again, I typically will use the metal ones because I'm making them for people. But when I've used silicone or the glass ones, there's definitely things you don't want to cook in glass just because they won't do as well. But the banana bread has never been one of those. It does well in all, and I think that's what's so great about like a sweet bread recipe, like a banana bread. In some ways, it's almost foolproof, and especially this one because I'm like, you're not having to mix eggs, you're not having to worry about melting butter or anything like that. You're just mashing bananas, combining the wet and the dry, and you bake. And my experience in any type of loaf pan has I've never had a bad experience in any of those.
You know, I wonder historically how eggs even got to be used in baking because we both know, because we've both written two baking books, that you don't need them. So I'm wondering who was the first person to put egg? Because, you know, I remember
Yeah.
during the Depression, when eggs were scarce, that's when they really started figuring out how you can make incredible cakes using things like apple cider vinegar or any kind of vinegar with the baking powder, baking soda to make it rise.
hmm
So they're not necessary, but I'm wondering who that dodo was, the first person that did that to make people think you need animal products to make desserts or bread.
Well, that's kind of like I've always wondered, and I've heard people say, "Oh, it's to make them light, or it's to bind them." But I'm like, I don't know. It's like pancakes. Like, why do you put eggs in pancakes? Like there's people will do egg whites in pancakes or stuff like that. And I'm like,
Well,
those fluffy.
where are they gonna get their protein?
Yeah. It's always, yeah. Well, yeah. That's an always a good one. And I can't even respond to that comment anymore because to me, it just doesn't even warrant a comment anymore. It's just like an eye roll and I'm on my way. But yeah, I like when I did that pancake recipe, and I never will forget when I was on podcast with Rip Esselstyn one time. He called me. He started his show out saying, "What's up, my plant strong pancakes?" And he just was talking about how this guy has no less than a dozen. I love pancakes. I love pancakes, and they are my comfort food. And so when I realized I could make homemade pancakes with no eggs and no buttermilk, I just went and I made as many pancakes as I could, different types of pancakes, and I learned how to get them fluffy. And I'm like, you don't need buttermilk and butter and eggs to make fluffy vegan pancakes. You don't need oil to do it. I'm proof of that. So,
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot of misconceptions. Not only do we not need them in the baking, but we don't need them in our body. There are people that still believe,
right.
we need oil.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, no, you don't.
That's so curious to me because I can understand the argument. Well, you need fat, even though we don't need as much as most people eat. But
Right.
I never understood the oil thing because to me it doesn't taste all that good, at least by itself.
It, I remember before going plant-based, I used to, when we would go to like Olive Garden or something, I always loved the olive oil and balsamic. But then I never will forget, I think it was Dr. McDougall that said, when you get that out of your system, and even Rip said it, and you go back and you try to hide it and your taste buds reset, he said it typically will have a very synthetic taste. And I never will forget the first time I had oil after, and I had not had any like the first 7, 8 months of going plant based. And when when I had it on something, we were out. I couldn't even finish what I was eating because it was just so my mouth tasted it was coated and you're kind of doing that. And so I'm like, my body didn't reject going this whole route, but I'm seeing if I'm going to add this back, I'm going to have to kind of develop a taste for it again or add it. And I don't. There's just something like if you've got to convince your body to accept it, then maybe you shouldn't.
Absolutely. Somebody said they tried your recipe using oat flour and it worked. So that's great.
Okay. No, that's great. I love it when people,
Yep, I'm
you
gonna.
know,
I
respond
said
like that.
I don't
Yes.
even I don't even bother grinding my oats anymore because they're almost like a flour anyway. So I'm gonna definitely try it with that. Thanks for the suggestion. Dominique says I make Shane's apple and banana oat muffins all the time. They're so moist. And Jackie says, being a fellow Mississippian, your banana bread recipe is the one I bake all the time that everyone loves. They can't believe it's vegan, LOL. Can you make it into
Wow.
muffin? Can you make it into muffins also?
Absolutely. Yes. Follow the same baking directions. The only thing I would say is because you're using it in smaller amounts as far as individual muffins, I would say start at the baking around 20 to 30 minutes and just check them. But yes, you can absolutely make muffins and they make great muffins. So yes, and I'll tell you something, that is an honor to hear another Mississippian say that's their go-to banana bread because down here, sweetbreads and things like that, they're loaded with the milks and the eggs and the butter and things like that. So that kind of tickles me. I love hearing that. So.
Suzanne, who's watching on Instagram, remember Instagram viewers, this is the last week you can watch here. There'll be nothing here after this week. Do you have an Instagram? She wants to know.
Yeah, it's Shane and Simple Cooking.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice. What do
that's
it seemed like you told me once you like to play games like with your family, right? Or just maybe friends.
uh-huh.
Well, because I do too. I started having game parties, it's hard to get the people to come because everybody seems so busy, but I'm trying to do them once a
Hmm.
month and I'm curious which games you play.
Golly. I mean, I love card games, but I love interactive board games. So I still love the oldies. Like I love Trivia Pursuit. Love Trivia Pursuit. I love that game. but I love like categories or Pictionary. Love just we love Monopoly. We typically play that on vacation because it's we can play it, leave it, and come back. But I think if we're having people over, we always go to categories or Pictionary and do it because you can do those in big groups, and we'll kind of take the Pictionary thing and use big whiteboards or win, lose, or draw type thing. Those are always fun. Um, one of the games we love Uno, but as the games have developed, they've gotten more serious, and you can get some like Uno Dare is fun, and um, so I really like things like that. But I do love like when you got big groups. I'll tell you this quick story. One of my favorite game stories. We were living in Charlotte the first time we had moved there, and I think it was like 2007, 2008, and I was working as a music director at church that time, and we had a lot of singles in our church. And so my wife and I, we said when we started having kids, we weren't going to travel for the holidays. And so we were having Thanksgiving at our house, and we just sent out an email and said, "Hey, any singles that are here, feel free to come by and spend Thanksgiving with us." So we had about 10 or 11 people come over. And I think we ate at 2 o'clock, and then we had some more people come over and do dessert with us. Well, we ended up having like I want to say 16, 17, 18 people in our house. And so we all divided up into like four teams of three, four, and five, and we played Trivia Pursuit. And we ended up playing from 5 o'clock till 9:30. And it was one of the funnest times we had. I mean, people were hurling all in good fun. Like, it got super competitive, and we were making fun of people when they would miss easy questions, but it was just one of the best times we had playing games. So I would say those three or four though are like some of my. If you're doing them as a group, that's what we have found to be the best group games. But
I
I,
love.
I will. I, I will tell you this: if you love to have fun, which you do, and you and I still talk about eventually going and doing a water slide together, and hanging out. Um, we were on vacation in the mountains this past week in North Carolina, and we played a game with some friends called Throw Burrito. So if you can find that somewhere, it's very interactive. It's these two squishy burritos, and at some point you got to pick them up and throw them at somebody or something like that. But it's real fast paced, and the game doesn't last more than maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and then you start over and play again. But it's really fun, very interactive.
I've never heard of that.
I hadn't either. They had
Oh.
brought it, and so and the kids and adults can play together, so it's super fun.
Have you ever done paintball?
Like actual paintball?
Yeah, where like they're
Oh
shooting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. I absolutely love that. And I'll tell people too, man, those things hurt like crap if you get hit outside the padding. I got hit on the back and it looked like a hornet had stung me. But I love paintball.
That's cool. Well, I agree with you. Trivia is fun. I'm on a trivia team, and we almost went to the finals. It's a vegan trivia team, and it's really fun. And we go every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, and we play trivia. Super
Yeah, I
fun.
haven't. When we were in Charlotte, a lot of the bars and places did trivia night. I love trivia night. I think there's a place close to here that does something like that. I would love to go do something like that. It's interesting because I think I kind of surprise people because I don't come across as knowing anything really. And I kind of like being just flying under the radar. But I love trivia. But I guess I like to read, and I love to read obscure facts that nobody I get into that. And so but I usually do well at trivia and trivia pursuit and things like that. So but anyway.
What are your strong categories? Because mine, I'm not really good with politics, history, and geography, but anything that's kind of pop culture, like movies, TV shows, those kind of things. That's why they keep
I
the team.
Yeah, I'm typically that I would say that's probably my strong suit is like pop culture, entertainment and things like that. But I think because over the last 15 or 20 years, I just really developed a bigger love for reading and studying and things like that. So, and I love I'm okay with geography. It's never been a strong suit, but I do like the political current events, past events, just because I love reading about the history of other countries and how this migrated here and things like that. So I typically do better than people expect. The literary category, a lot of times, I do okay in literature or whatever category that falls in, books and stuff like that. Um, but I think I'm more like I would say that probably like you, my strongest suit would probably be pop culture.
Yeah,
So
that's my favorite. Have you ever been on a game show?
no, and I would love to. We we recently, because I guess we knew Pat Sajak was retiring, but we started watching Wheel of Fortune again and getting into it. But I love all those old games because growing up in the '80s, when you were home for the summer, especially in Mississippi, you didn't live in a neighborhood, so we were very rural. So we grew up, and every morning we were watching Pressure Luck and Wheel of Fortune came on in the morning at that time, and Price is Right and all those game shows. And so we grew up watching game shows, and I love the fact that on YouTube TV that the Game Show Network is on there, and so they replay a lot of those old games and have newer ones. But I will tell you this: a lot of people don't know this. Um, I am a Andy Griffith show expert. I actually have the Andy Griffith trivia game.
I used to be an I Love Lucy expert.
Really,
Yeah.
my in-laws gave me that game for Christmas years ago, and I've lost one round, and it was to my younger daughters. And we were tied all the way around, and they answered one question, and they are the only ones that have ever beat me at Andy Griffith. And that's kind of like a family favorite show too. So kind of excited that my kids love that show, but and one of my daughters loves I Love Lucy too. So, but yeah, so I've but apart to them, I've never lost any trivia that had to do with Andy Griffith.
What's your favorite Andy Griffith episode?
It's the pickle episode, Aunt Bee's pickles. It's the best. I love just the writing and the comedy and just the. I think that's probably if we all had to say. I think it would be that one, and then and probably second to that one when Opie gives 3 cents to the underprivileged children's fund, and Andy's upset with him, and then comes to find out because he says he's going to buy his girlfriend something, and Andy's like, "Well, ain't that just like a playboy can't give to the kids?" And then he finds out that his girlfriend, Opie's little girlfriend, is actually one of the needy kids, and he's going to buy her a coat because hers got holes in it. And but I think because that's more of a sad, heart tugging one. But the Aunt Bee's pickles is the pickle story. That is one of the not just one of the funniest Andy Griffith episodes, but one of the funniest episodes of any sitcom I think I've ever seen. Just the way, and I love Don Knotts' comedy. I mean, just the interaction between them two is that's one of the best episodes of any TV show ever.
Did you ever see the movie Waitress? It was one of Andy Griffith's last film.
Yes.
He was wonderful as that in that role.
Oh, my wife watched that movie and she said, "You need to watch this." And I sat down with her, and I love that. And sadly, the lady, I can't remember the actress's name that was in that movie. She's the one that wrote it, I think.
Well,
Had
yeah,
the glasses.
I know who you mean. She played the friend. I know she got murdered. It was so sad.
Yeah, so sad. But yeah, that was a great movie. Really, really liked that movie.
We saw the musical,
um,
I mean, it just was with Sarah. Oh, come on, last name Sarah. She's really famous. Guys, put it in the chat. Yeah. Anyway, that was really good. What was cool about Andy Griffith is that remember Otis, what was his name, right? The town drunk, right?
Yeah, Otis Campbell.
He
Yeah.
could just lock himself up.
Yeah. And what's so funny is
Sarah Bareilles. Thank you, Trish. We saw it
Sarah Bareilles. Yeah.
in the movie with Trish. But yeah, see, Trish is on my trivia team. So that's why
Okay.
she's actually on my local trivia team. That's why we keep her. She knew that. Yeah. That's great.
It's funny because Andy Griffith in Mayberry is so much like where we live. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if some of the town drunks just walked down to the jail and put themselves in it every night. I mean, it's just it kind of has that. And then coming up on July 4th, my wife actually loves it. And um, we live on a street that was part of one of the original subdivisions in this neighborhood, and they call it the Silk Stocking District because I think they used to have a factory that made silk stockings, or it was just a nice neighborhood back in the 20s. But it's called Foster Park, and there used to be a pool and tennis courts in the big grassy park area. And of course, it's long gone, and it's the house we say the renovation that never ends. But every year, our little town does a 4th of July parade. And the main last leg of it is right up our street, and people bring their chairs and just sit in our lawn. And you're literally, the road doesn't have a shoulder, and you can touch people as they come by. But it's like people decorate their bicycles, their lawnmowers, their tractors, the VFA. I mean, it's just everybody. And it's kind of like everybody decorates their house. And I mean, it's crazy. It's almost bigger than Christmas in some ways around here. But it's just like everybody has red, white, and blue. And then they have lemonade and a drawing. And I'll tell you a funny story. So at the end, they do a drawing every year, and I'll probably get in trouble from somebody here, but I don't care. They do the big drum, and they have a drawing for prizes. And I can't remember what the main prize was, but the lady drawing last year reached in, and we saw her pull out the name, look at it, and just kind of shook her head and put it back and drew somebody else's name. That's total small town.
Yeah,
So
I've always lived in a big city. It just sounds like it'd be such a cool, they always say the grass is always greener, but it just seems like it'd be so cool to like at least try out a small town for a change.
it definitely has its pros. I think because we've lived in cities since I was 20 years old, and our kids, were born in Charlotte, grew in Charlotte, and born in Nashville and Charlotte, and we lived in Atlanta and we lived in Charlotte. We definitely miss a lot of the amenities of the cities, like we don't get to go to Whole Foods, and you don't get to do a lot of these things, but there's a lot of pros that outweigh that. And I mean, pace of life it's just way slower. People don't get in a rush to go anywhere. And I never will forget, we moved back, and there's a community college here and the small high school where our girls go. And everybody was like, "Now, y'all remember in August is when school starts and the traffic gets terrible. We live 3 minutes. We live a minute from the high school. And then when school's in, it takes us 5 minutes to get there and back." And we're like, "This ain't traffic. This is not traffic is trying to go 2 miles, takes you an hour and a half to go 2 miles, And so, those are the things that we've enjoyed not having. Of course, my brother lives 5 minutes away from me, 6 minutes away from me, and I have aunts here. And so it's been good, kind of, because I lived here until I was 16. And it's cool too, because everybody thinks my wife and I have the coolest jobs. Like,
Yeah.
wow, you're like one of the bloggers, and so it's fun, and the community is very supportive. you know it's really, it is a really laid back, slow pace that there's some people still don't lock their doors at night, probably. So
Yeah. Well, Shane, you are just a delight. I mean, I wish you lived closer because we could play games together.
I know.
I have the best idea. You're probably too busy.
Okay.
I've been doing this since
No,
the
no.
pandemic. Have you ever heard of Jackbox?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so I have friends in Maryland, a big family, and I also have a friend in San Diego, and I've been actually, one of them I've seen since the pandemic. So we do this every week. Maybe you could play with us sometime. It's like we get really wild.
My daughter and son-in-law got us into Jackbox, and we absolutely loved it. That's some of the, yeah. So
We
anytime
play,
y'all play, if you feel
okay,
free.
I'm gonna text you. We play Fibbage, Whiplash, and the Rap Game. Those are the three favorites.
Yeah. 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 That's awesome. Yeah. We had a blast doing that.
I think
So
it'd be
yeah,
fun.
feel free to include me.
Maybe we could host, like, maybe we could like have a community where you get like where we people pay to play with us, like vegan Jackbox with Shane and AJ.
Yeah. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Yes, we need to make that happen. So
Well, you are amazing. So guys, come on. People are saying, well, I love his work, but I don't eat bread. Well, whatever, it doesn't matter. Get it as a gift somebody.
It makes a great gift, and Christmas is coming up in a few months, and give it to somebody.
And just, it doesn't matter if you can't eat it, gift it. This is a wonderful book. It really is. He put his heart and soul in it. The pictures are beautiful. And, get it now because in November we got to get his next book. And, even though I'm not, I mentioned to you, I don't want people to think that because I'm not doing the show every day, this is it. You have my phone number. Text me when you need to come on because you have a program or a book or you just have a new recipe. I'm here for you and for you.
Well,
You
I
are.
will most definitely do that. I still tell people, some of my vegan friends, I was a few months ago, I was with some vegan friends that I've known forever, and you had texted me about something just out of the blue. And I was sitting there, I said, hold on just a second, I'm texting. And they go, dude, who are you talking to? I said, oh, it was Chef AJ. And they were just like, I was like the coolest person in the room at that point. Like, oh yeah, I got Chef AJ's number in my phone.
When I get a text from one of the vegan doctors, I feel the exact same way. I think I was texting you about the milk at Sam's Club.
Yes, that's it. That's what I said. I said, she just sent me some, that was what it was. I said, she sent me some almond milk that's at Sam's Club. And they're going, no way. And I was like, yeah, see?
Oh, you are just precious. You are so precious. Well, thank you so much.
Well,
And
thank you. You are too.
thank you. Every success with this book. Come on, guys. Link below, get it. And because we got another one coming out, and you're going to have to get your bread maker for that one. And don't forget to follow Shane on his blog, Shane and Simple. And thank you so much, Shane. It's just been fun catching up with you.
Thanks, Chef. Great to see you.
Same here. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live as we go into our final week. Come back at 11 a.m. tomorrow with Eileen Kapsoftis, our resident plant-based physical therapist who's going to be talking about bunions. You got any bunions, Shane? I've never had a bunion.
For not yet. So I'm thankful. So
Well, all right, same here. Onions, but not bunions. Okay. Oh, Shane, have you played Cards Against Humanity? People are writing in the chat.
Oh, yes. Okay. 10 seconds. I'm going to tell you a story. Okay. We played that game in Charlotte. I thought it was hilarious. It was funny. My daughter bought it before she went to college to play with her, to play in college. And my wife, before she left, went through that whole game and pulled out what she thought were the most offensive offensive cards in there with all the language and everything, and wrote a note that said, because I'm your mother and I love you. My daughter gets to college, doesn't open the box for 6 months, and they get together and she sees and she goes, she just said, I just opened this, what the heck? And she realized my wife had gone through and pulled out the really, what we called the dirty cards. But that game is one of my favorite games. I can't believe I didn't mention that. That is one of our favorite party games to play. Yes.
I played this with my friend's kids when they were like 8 and 11 years old. And she said that the reason they are the way they are today was because of that, what I did to the family. So it is a fun game. It is a little bit dirty.
It is.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Gia is saying, Shane, you seem very down to earth. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's why we like you. And because he makes great recipes.
Well,
yeah, this guy is cool. He seems very down to earth, very much, except for in his secret life where he becomes a superhero in Mississippi. And
yeah. People don't know that I can fly yet.
Yeah.
So I'm
great.
That's very kind. Thank you.
I'm guessing you like movies too. I think you probably like movies and you probably like comedies. I just have a feeling.
My go-to movies are comedies, and I love movies, and I like the independent movies more typically, like the Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou and the Royal Tenenbaums. Dan in Real Life is probably one of our favorite movies. Love those kinds of movies. I still love Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre. I love those. Those types of movies are like just my go-to. But I do love a good rom-com. My wife is obsessed with Jane Eyre, Little Women, and all the BBC stuff. And I love, talk about entertainment, I love BBC sitcoms. I love BBC sitcoms. I love British humor. So
nice. Well, thanks so much. It's really fun catching up with you. I hope we don't have to wait.
You too, Chef.
All right. Take care, Shane. And thanks all of you for watching.
Okay.
So to Chef AJ Live. Bye, y'all. Y'all come back now.